Hello, friends, and welcome to today's live level up conversation. Whether you're joining me live or catching me on replay, happy Thursday. Let's dive right in.
And now, get ready. I present to you Level Up with Winnie Sun. Market update. Award-winning financial pro. Welcome to Level Up with Winnie Sun.
Well, hello, friends. Thank you so much for joining me today. Happy December to you, wherever you're joining me live from. I'm Winnie, your host and award-winning financial pro, Forbes contributor, and a CNBC council member and contributor. And yes, we are absolutely live. So wherever you're joining me, hello. It's great to be here with you. Happy December. So much is going on. The market is still open right now. We've got just a couple minutes to go. So let's start with that. Currently, the Dow is down about 69 points. NASDAQ is now in the positive about 35 points. It was literally just up like a smidge before we started live here. The S&P 500 also in the positive, but only by 2 points. Kind of a lackluster day. You know, a lot of people are just kind of waiting to see what the Fed announcement on interest rates will be next week. So this is kind of a quieter week for sure. The first week of December. I mean, can you believe it? We're already at that last month. We're almost close to 2026. So, well, the news, there's been a lot of news. I just want to kind of talk through some of the big headlines that we've been reading. And then, of course, as we go deeper into the month, I'm going to give you some more tips and some things to keep on your radar as we go into the final days of 2025. Well, first off, I want to share with you something that I thought was pretty cool. This is being shared on TechCrunch and a couple other financial publications as well, talking about this new feature where you can actually talk to your TV. That's right. You can say it and Alexa Plus will now find it. Now AI is fully integrated into their TV product. So Fire TV now is going to use AI to help you skip to specific scenes in Prime Video movies. Simply, all you have to say is basically the thing that you're thinking of. And so your description will be enable their product Alexa Plus to be able to say things like jump to the scene where so and so sings honey honey and mamma mia. It could be like show me that scene where come out to the coast from Die Hard or something like that. So this is really cool, especially for those of you who are movie buffs and maybe you just want to see a scene all over again. Maybe it's an older movie like Die Hard where you're introducing it to someone new. So this new technology, AI technology, is going to identify scenes using movie captions and sort of that visual understanding. So it's learning even without you naming the movie itself. So this feature is going to be powered by Amazon Bedrock, which includes AI models like Amazon Nova and Anthropic's Claude as well. So it's going to be work on thousands of Prime Video movies. Now, you only get this if you have the Amazon Prime membership, or let's say you purchase or you rent a movie that has this. So they're saying that TV show support is going to be coming soon. That'll be interesting. And see, the technology is so quick that even with new TV shows, maybe this is going to be something that they can literally just integrate that quickly. And so they say the database of index scenes is going to just keep on expanding. Now, if Amazon is releasing this, it's just a matter of time that pretty much you're going to see this in all forms of entertainment. I can see this probably coming to Max and Netflix and Disney Plus and everything else. And that'll make entertainment even that much more interactive, right? Where you can sort of control things that happen. I'm going to guess that at some point they're even going to make it so they're going to say, like, you know what? I don't like the way that ended. Maybe give me a different variation. Can you see that? I bet you can see that too. Now let's continue on because I want to talk about another story that came out this week. This is being shared on basically another financial publication. I want to say this is actually on multiple publications. But the reason I want to bring this up is this is all about, bringing more manufacturing jobs to the United States. Now, the big push right now is, of course, AI, making chips. You're all familiar with companies such as NVIDIA and Broadcom and everybody else. Well, there is a very large manufacturing company in the area of chips, and that is TSMC. And TSMC stands for I think Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company or something like that. But this is being shared about how Taiwan's TSMC is now investing $165 billion in building a major semiconductor complex in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, this is part of the plan to make the United States, much more self reliant for critical computer chips. But the effort sort of has exposed some of these challenges or hiccups in sort of this ability for us here in the United States to execute massive industrial projects. So I want to talk about that. So there's been a lot of challenges in the TSMC project that I think is important to sort of share and talk about to give you sort of that deeper understanding of why can't we just make more things here in the United States, right? Like we have the people, we have the talent, we have the education, we have the we have a lot of the energy and a lot of the um, sophistication and hard work of Americans. So why can't this be done quickly? Well, there is actually some reason, and one of that is bureaucratic red tape, because TSMC's project, they actually shared that this project in Phoenix, Arizona is requiring 18,000 local permits, which cost $35 million, which is far more expensive than if they were to do the same manufacturing plant in the country of Taiwan, where if they were doing it in Taiwan, guess how many permits they would need? One permit versus 18,000 here in Phoenix, Arizona, I mean, in the United States. So they're saying that the US system just layers on so many more municipal, state, federal regulations, which really slow progress significantly. If you've ever seen some of the videos on YouTube and whatnot, I'm sure you've seen certain countries such as China, for example, they can actually build like a whole parking lot from like completely bare ground to full on functioning parking lot in literally a matter of days. Now, it would take us here in the United States probably significantly more time to get the required permits, just as TSMC is now experienced as well. They're also saying that local skilled workers were actually hard to find in Phoenix, Arizona, or that particular type that they needed. So TSMC actually brought in over 500 different workers from Taiwan, which of course sparked more backlash and lawsuits alleging discrimination and unsafe working conditions as well. And it's not just the workers, right? Bringing them over, then there's a lot of sort of cultural priorities as well. They said there's cultural clashes of like the Taiwanese style of work and here in the United States. In fact, they said Taiwanese work culture prioritizes long hours and obedience. And that sort of clashes with the American labor expectations about work life balance and safety protocols as well. And of course, there's other things to be considered, such as environmental constraints, because Arizona's water scarcity environmental laws actually created further hurdles, including requirements to actually move tortoises, replant desert flora, and even conduct lots of impact studies as well. So residents near TSMC in Phoenix and supplier plants like Armcorp, they really oppose development due to these noise, pollution, and other water use concerns. And protests actually led Amcor to relocate a $7 billion facility. So that's just some of the challenges of building like widespread, very large, sophisticated manufacturing companies from offshore to the United States. But I think that's, this is just something that we here in the United States will evolve. And I think if we continue to communicate and work with the different parties, hopefully it can go from 18,000 to much closer to just one permit and being a lot less expensive than 35 million. That's a lot of money, right? So we'll see how that goes. But I want to share that with you just to give you an idea. I know they were really trying to position Phoenix to become sort of a Silicon Desert with over 40,000 ship related workers. Even ASU, Arizona State University, now expanding engineering programs to help meet that demand. But yeah, it's still a beginning. Certainly, America does want to do this. We want to have large scale industrial investment, but of course, it's probably just not going to happen overnight. So, we got to be a little bit patient. Even NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang commented on this, actually praising the efforts of many of these Taiwanese workers helping to build America's chip future as well. So that's exciting. I think that's good. Thank you so much for being here. I see so many of you joining me live. Thanks so much for being here. Let's continue on because I want to talk about what's also happening up at Meta. Now, Meta, as you know, parent company used to be called Facebook, right? This is being reported on CNBC that the European Commission has launched an antitrust investigation into Meta's WhatsApp AI policy, which is suspected that it actually may be unfairly restricting competition. Now, the focus, of course, is on Meta's new policy that was released this past October, which blocks third party AI providers from using WhatsApp's business messaging tools when AI is their main offering. Now, the European Union officials fear that this actually may limit innovation and even like not play fair with rivals in the AI space and really sort of operating freely in the European Economic Area, the EEA, excluding countries such as Italy due to sort of a separate local investigation. Now, Meta's WhatsApp has responded. They said that this is absolutely baseless, definitely not true, stating that, you know what, their API wasn't built for AI bots and that AI tools already have multiple other platforms to reach, so they don't need to bark up this tree. Now, fines for antitrust violations in the European Union, though, can be quite steep. And so that definitely Meta wants to avoid this. Actually can reach up to 10% of a company's annual revenue. So give you an idea how huge this is, right? So past fines, Google, Apple, Meta, huge numbers, 10% of their annual revenue. So some of these cases have had a merit where they've actually won major dollars from major technology companies already. So the investigation does add to mounting pressure on the United States tech giants who do business and conduct business in Europe, as a lot more officials are seeking to prevent digital monopolies and, of course, to protect consumer choice there. Now, President Trump has criticized these European Union actions as discriminatory and even hinting at potential retaliatory tariffs once again. Speaking of President Trump, I want to talk about this other story that is on the New York Times. It's actually all over the news right now. And this is a big one. I really want to know what you think about this because this gives me pause. Okay, so President Trump has decided to roll back the sort of Biden era fuel efficiency standards, which reverses efforts aimed at promoting electric vehicles, EV adoption, and of course, cutting greenhouse gas emissions to help with climate change. Now, President Trump's new policy is going to reduce the required average fuel economy for new cars and light trucks in 2031 to 34.5 miles per gallon, down from President Biden's original 50.4 miles per gallon. So the Trump administration claims that this is actually going to save Americans about $109 billion over 5 years, and that this will help lower car prices by about $1,000 per vehicle. A claim, of course, that's being disputed by environmental and economic experts across the board. People are saying that this is a bad idea, that it's actually going to roll back a lot of the things that harm the environment and really stall US EV competitiveness as really the rest of the world continues to step on the gas towards more EV adoption, electric mobility, right? So auto companies, after investing heavily in EV production under President Biden's regulations, now they're sort of not sure what to do. They're kind of caught between either changing regulations and the reality of current market, and of course, tariffs and inflation and everything else. But the policy change reflects President Trump's stance that EV mandates, as he feels, are really a scam. Although he has sort of softened slightly after Elon Musk joined his administration. But the public has now 45 days. If you have an opinion, you have 45 days to comment on the proposed rule before it actually becomes finalized. So, this is something you feel strongly about. Definitely make your voice heard. And I'm sure you can probably Google somewhere on the White House where you can share your comments on this topic. Now let's continue because I want to talk to you about another story that was on 9 to 5 Mac. This is being reported and talking about sort of this new time capsule case. Okay. So Elevation Lab has released a compact version of its time capsule case for Apple AirTag. I thought this was really cool because, you know, if you travel, everybody says you got to make sure you have an Apple AirTag in your suitcase, especially your check luggage, or if you have sporting equipment that you're checking, you want to make sure that you have an AirTag so you can know at all times where your luggage is at, and in case something's missing or didn't make it on the plane, then you'll be notified. Well, one of the challenges with the Apple AirTag that I've experienced is, well, after a little bit, you sort of forget that you have it in the case, in the luggage, and all of a sudden you get a notification from your phone that the battery is about to die. Now, what do you do? Well, it's unfortunate because it is such a small device. It's such an important device that ideally you want a longer battery life. And so this new time capsule does just that. The time capsule for Apple AirTag is now going to be offering about 5 or more years of battery life. So this new case utilizes two AAA batteries, and they do recommend a certain type, I think by Energizer. It's going to be waterproof. They said it's going to be discreet with no external indicator that it contains an AirTag. And they said by doing so, those who are annoyed by those frequent low battery notifications, well, they said this will solve that. Let me know what you think about that. Do you feel like this is a big problem? Or do you think like, changing a battery on your AirTag is not that big a deal? And it's nice because actually you do get the notification. It does force someone like myself and my family, because we do travel quite a bit, to like remember where we put the AirTags in the luggage. Takes a minute to find it, but it's not the end of the world. All right, that being said, I want to talk about what's happening in the housing market here in the United States. This is being shared by CBS News. Well, home prices are forecast to fall in 2022 of the 100 largest U.S. cities in 2026. This is according to Realtor.com, which signaling a more balanced, buyer-friendly market. So, if you've been sitting on the sidelines thinking about buying real estate, maybe buying your first home, well, maybe if you're in one of these cities, you might consider waiting just a little bit longer, because the biggest drops that they expect actually are going to be in Florida cities. So if you live in Florida, maybe this is for you. So Cape Coral, Fort Lauderdale, they're expecting a 10.2% drop. And other places in the southeast, and also here in the west, especially areas that really surged during the pandemic due to remote work and low interest rates, because mortgage rates are expected to dip slightly to 6.3% on average, and existing home sales are projected to rise just a little bit to 4.13 million. And by the way, there's been a lot of talk right now in the financial news also about how, this year there's going to be new Fed chairman, and they're looking for a Fed chairman. President Trump has indicated that he's looking for someone who is thinking about lowering the rate of mortgages. So if you've been sitting on the sidelines, this actually can help you. And I know somebody who's watching that I think is going to be happy about that news. But rising wages, they say, growing inventory, that's all going to support buyers. Though price increases in some other 78 cities are going to remain modest, modest gains and nothing else. But so that could be good news. If you've been sort of waiting on the sidelines, looking to purchase real estate, maybe to refinance, if the rates go down and then the housing prices get reasonable, it could just be your opportunity. So my take on that is definitely save, spend less. save more, and get ready if in fact you are in that area, and keep your credit score nice and healthy too. Now, I want to talk about another story that is being shared this week on Axios about what's happening at the FDA. Now, if you didn't know already, you really want to pay attention to this because this will impact your finances as well and the financial decisions that you make for you and your family. Now, the FDA is facing a pretty large crisis in leadership because now a fourth director this year of the agency's drug center, U.S. agency's drug center, all of a sudden resigned just 3 weeks into his role. So, industry leaders and former FDA commissioners are warning that this instability actually jeopardizes drug reviews, potentially delaying new treatments, and actually risking public health. So John Cromley, CEO of Bio, and 12 former FDA commissioners actually issued public statements citing unprecedented regulatory instability and really criticizing sort of political interference with what they do. So Tracy Beth Hogue, a physician and critic of past COVID-19 policies, will be the acting director. And of course, this raises further concern within the U.S. agency and the industry as whole, because they're saying that political appointees really marginalize career scientists and that politics shouldn't be involved with the FDA as much as possible. They're talking about missed deadlines and canceled regulatory meetings, and even morale among staff are at historic lows. So they say this new vague program pushing expedited reviews based on Trump era priorities. And there's been a lot of backlash when it comes to vaccines and what's going on there as well. But anyway, you look at it, my take is this: whatever we do, the American public wants a sense of stability, confidence, and transparency, and understanding that they're going to be okay and they're going to be able to get the medication and the healthcare needs that they need at the time that they need it. So hopefully they can square this out. And I'm sure all of you would agree it's best if science stays with science. Now let's continue and talk about the another big change that's occurring at Apple. Another big personnel change. Okay, so this is sort of happening at Apple, and now it's happening at Meta as well. So there's been a big leadership shift at Apple. In fact, Apple's longtime head of UI design since 2015, Alan Dye, is leaving Apple to become Meta's chief design officer effective at the end of this year. So at Meta, Alan is going to oversee hardware, software, and AI integration, reporting directly to Andrew Bosworth, who is the CTO at Meta. Now, of course, Apple is saying, thank you so much for amazing work that you've done, but they already have a replacement in place now. I guess Steve LeMay, who is a veteran at Apple, been there since 1999, will of course replace Alan Dye in that position. And of course, there's many other changes as well. There's just a lot of movement right now. There's a lot of people changing positions, jumping ship, especially in the time of this evolving of AI. People are all looking for that top talent. And let's be honest, Apple's done a great job with their design, right? So it's not a big surprise here that, Mark Zuckerberg at Meta would want this sort of talent. But this follows with another Apple designer that was also leaving from Meta as well. Now, of course, this is sort of a growing list of Apple's leadership exits. Now, the former COO, Jeff Williams, has left, the AI chief there has left, and even the lead of chips at Apple has left as well. So, hopefully, better days ahead, but yeah, people are looking for new opportunities. And I think that's just the sign of times. Everybody is in this AI race and they're all looking to win. Now, another story that's come out is, of course, from CNBC on this exact same topic of movement in the workplace. Well, get this: US companies have just announced 1.17 million layoffs in 2024. This is according to a recent survey or a study by Challenger, Gray, and Christmas. Now, this is making sort of one of the worst layoff years ever since, of course, during the pandemic in 2020. Okay. Last month alone in November, 71,321 job cuts occurred, driven mostly by restructuring, of course, market conditions. But let's not kid ourselves. A lot of that is also AI related with redundancies. So artificial intelligence is citing in about 54 to 54 and a half thousand layoffs this year alone, with tech companies reducing over 12,000 jobs in November alone. Other pressure, of course, includes tariffs, linking to about 8,000 job cuts this year as well. And economic slowdowns. Verizon, remember, they cut 13,000 jobs just last month. So the Labor Department is now showing weekly jobless claims dropping to about 191,000, the lowest in over 3 years. But this is likely due to holiday week anomalies. So maybe not completely accurate. But companies are also holding off on new hiring. Actually, um, planning to hire new people at companies, that's actually down 35% compared to 2024. That's really a significant number. So while layoffs did dip from October's numbers, experts note that cuts above 70,000 in November are very, very rare, last seen only in 2008 and 2022. Both really difficult years in the financial markets, 2028, 2008 and 2022. So with that, let's see what happens. I mean, we've only got a few more weeks to go. I think there's probably going to be more layoffs that will be announced. I mean, that sort of makes sense. Usually, the end of the year, that is also layoff season, just in general, even without AI and without tariffs and inflation. But there's another story that I want to end off, and this is just something that's being reported on Yahoo News this week. I want to make sure it's on your radar because it's a big deal. The FDA has escalated a recall of over 1 million bags of shredded cheese. That's right, shredded cheese to class 2 due to possible metal fragment contamination. So they said a lot of the brands that contain this type of contaminated, potentially contaminated shredded cheese were sold at companies such as Target, Walmart, Publix, Aldi, and many, many other places. They said it's covering 31 different U.S. states and Puerto Rico. The recall is initiated by Great Lakes Cheese Company, which includes a whole bunch of different types of shredded cheese, like mozzarella and Italian style, pizza style, and all that stuff. So you really want to take a look at what's in your refrigerator. If you have this, you probably want to pay attention to this, because the FDA is warning that the contaminated products could actually cause temporary or medically reversible injuries, and that customers should avoid consumption and discard or just return the cheese for a refund. Now, a lot of these products have sell dates from January to March of 2026. So a lot of this is could be seen as quite fresh if you have it in your refrigerator. So definitely pay attention to it and check out the FDA official website for more information on that. And lastly, for those of you who saw me on CBS Evening News this week, thank you so much for reaching out. I got so many messages of people seeing that. And what I talked about during that time was, of course, about the new announcement of the Trump accounts for kids. Now, you might be wondering what that is. I'm going to just share with you some of the big bullets, and I'm going to be producing a lot more content in the next this coming week and next week about this to really deep dive a little bit more before they even become available for people to sign up, of whether or not this makes sense for you. Because the Trump accounts themselves are tax deferred investment accounts for U.S. children born from January of 2025 to December 31st, 2028 and beyond, okay, and others. It's just this, the children born between 2025 and 2028, they get a little something special. They, each of these kids is eligible, if you're born in the United States here, to receive $1,000 federal contribution. So accounts can also receive funds from other sources like parents and employers and even donors, up to $5,000 yearly. But that being said, for that free, basically free money of $1,000, well, their child needs to be born here in the States, in the United States, and it has to be between 2025 and 2028. So, like a newborn now, or if you're pregnant, you definitely want to do this as well for your child. But enrollment is going to be beginning in early of 2026. Contributions can start as soon as July 4th rolls around, and parents will manage the account until a child turns 18. Now, investments in these are going to be restricted to low fee mutual funds or ETFs tied to US equities, and the annual fees are going to be capped about at 0.1%. Now, the thing though is that you want to pay attention to is the money that you put in this can't be withdrawn before age 18, except in very special circumstances. So, for example, like a trustee to trustee rollover, or even if the child passes away. And after 18, then the standard IRA rules will apply. So I would just say that these accounts are going to be somewhat less flexible or advantageous, possibly, than some of the alternative accounts that you were typically open for your child, such as a 529 college savings plan, which I'm a big fan of, or a custodial brokerage account, or other types of accounts like that. And my biggest question, too, is whether this will show up on your FAFSA form when you apply for college, apply for financial aid. Is that going to be on the FAFSA form? And I don't have the information on that yet, but when I find out, I will definitely let you know. But yes, to open one of these Trump accounts, you're going to have to use the IRS form 4547. And just as a side note, there are like some major donors have started to make some contributions, including the Michael and Susan Dell um, charity group, which has donated $6.25 billion or $250 per child. That's going to be distributed to certain counts that qualify. The full terms in that haven't come out, but if you're curious, you can probably just Google it. And then when we find out more, we'll share it on the show for sure. But thank you so much, my friends. The market has closed. The Dow closed down 31 points. The Nasdaq closed up 51 points. S&P 500 closed up 7. So thank you so much for being a part of today's Level Up Live with Winnie Sun. I so appreciate your time. Do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe so you'll stay updated on all the latest and newest updates. And of course, if you want to watch past full episodes of Level Up with Winnie Sun, you can check out NASDAQ, Amazon Fire, Samsung, LG, Roku, and of course, where you're streaming from right now. And when sharing the episode online, thanks so much for tagging at Winnie Sun. I've been seeing it and I appreciate it so much. With that, I hope you're well. We'll see you again next week. Take care and be well. Bye bye now.